Welcome back to the Sacred Arts channel, where we talk about all things from the sacred to the practical. I am so excited as we have a very special guest today, Elies Hadi. Elies has been guiding lightworkers, healers, and starseeds in their awakening journey since 2016. She focuses on helping women to remember their calling, activate their gifts, and fulfill their highest vision. She is also the host of Starseed Goddess podcast, where she shares about all things woo-woo in a playful yet powerful way. Welcome, Elies.
Thank you for having me, Jessie. I'm so excited for our conversation today and to see where the spirit leads us.
Yes, me too. I'm really excited and
Mm-hmm.
intrigued by this topic because I've heard a lot of I've heard this word a lot, starseed and starseed awakening. Could you share a little bit about your own personal starseed awakening journey?
Yes. It's kind of funny because when I first started my spiritual journey, I was starting with meditation and I was so a little bit background was I came from a corporate background where it was like the total opposite of the ethereal and the woo-woo, right? Where things have to be practical and logical. So even when I started my meditation journey, I have already heard of Starseed, which is totally like an absurd concept. It's like I've been surrounded by Starseed my whole life without realizing that I'm one. It's like when I was in meditation classes, I always heard like my friends, even my closest friend, telling me like, oh, they come from the stars and he went back and visit Orion or whatever, their story is. And I was like, that is interesting, but like not for me, like no idea. So it's just funny because it's like right under my nose all this time, right? But I was like, did not get it until that pivotal moment, if you may, or what you can call awakening journey that happened in Bali that really just kind of hit me on the face that made me realize that, oh my God, maybe all along I'm one, but I didn't realize it. So it was sometime in 2019. And I don't know if you've heard of like the silent day in Bali.
No.
So once a year in what they call a silent day for nighttime onwards, you have to turn off your electricity as part of like, not electricity, turn off your light as part of like the ceremonial that they have once a year. And so that night, for the entire night, the entire household will turn off the light. So it's really dark and it's really quiet. You are not meant to be like listening to TV. It's the name Silent Day for a reason. So on that silent day, because the lights are turned off, so imagine how dark the star is. No, the sky is not the star. And I remember like waking up in the middle of the night and suddenly feel called to just check out the stars again. And then as I look up in the sky, I saw this beaming star, almost like it is talking to me and reaching out to me for the first time. It goes beyond the usual stargazing, if you may. Like I've always loved the star, but this is that moment where I was like, oh, I felt home. Like
Mm.
this is home. And I feel overwhelmed. I believe it was something like 4 a.m. It was those weird hours. I felt so overwhelmed by love that I think for the first time, I truly, truly, truly feel at home that, you don't know what you don't know, right? So I didn't know how that could possibly feel until that moment. And that's when it hit me that, oh, I'm a starseed baby all this while. Like I know about the concept, but it's only when it hit me that I'm like, okay, and that's kind of like my first awakening moment. And then, of course, as with any journey, it's constantly evolve and expand. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes, what a beautiful story. I can only imagine the feeling and that realization because, like you said, it was around you. A lot of people were talking about it. It was always kind of there, but to have that connection so deeply, it sounds truly special. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're
Can you
welcome.
Yeah, of course. Can you share with us what is a star seed and how might someone recognize if they are?
So what is a starseed? Starseed basically is those soul who originate from the star, hence the name starseed, which means basically they might have past incarnation on Earth, but they originally originate from the star. So
Mhm.
that is what starseed is. And as to how one might realize they are starseed, it is an awakening journey and like an inner knowing. Just like the story that I shared earlier, of course, your story is going to look different and unique to you, but there is nothing more profound than how you feel because, like, I can talk about it whole day long. As I said, I've been surrounded by starseed my whole time. I know exactly all the theory around starseed, if you may, but if it doesn't hit home, it doesn't hit home. It's just a concept. So to answer it, like, how do you know? You know when you know. It doesn't mean that you are not one. It might be you know it later. But if you don't resonate, you don't have to force yourself to.
Mm.
But having said that, part of what I structured into my Starseed Awakening course is that I also talk about how to know if you are Starseed in a more in-depth level, including like the 7 common signs to know if you are one. So those will be covered in more details there. But despite all that science, I still just want to emphasize that it's more important that you embody the experience and trust how you feel than just relying on that external guidance, although they can be a great way to start the journey, if that makes sense.
What's a unique trait or one of the signs that you were talking about?
So one of the most common signs that I see is that feeling of like really not belonging, like
Mm.
they don't feel at home, like it's almost like isolated or even outcasted depending on how they actually resonate. Because think about it, right? Like it's just like I like to use the analogy of like if you are from the US and then you suddenly migrate to a brand new country that you have never visited your whole life, you will somewhat at the beginning maybe feel like, oh, I miss home. And I'm not sure I like the culture here. I might love it, but there's just always this something about home that you're like missing and longing and yearning, and especially if you're away from your family. So it's kind of that feeling, but if you use the analogy, it'll be like the earth and the stars. So it's like almost like you're missing your star family, but you don't know you have a star family because you don't know you're a star seed. So until like you connect the dot, it's just that feeling of no matter how many friends I have and how hard I try, I just don't feel belong and I don't feel at home. As I was sharing, like you don't know what you don't know until you truly feel that full body embodiment of I'm home. You are searching for home everywhere else. Like that was actually what I was doing. Like I grew up in Indonesia and I moved to Singapore and then I moved again to Bali and then now back to my hometown again. And it was all in search of a new home, if you know what I mean. Like I was just not fulfilled, right? So I thought that if I move to a new country, it's gonna solve all my problem, but nope, it's not.
I love that analogy because I think a lot of us can definitely identify with that, like being away from home or, for a couple days at a time, or even going to another state or another country. Like there is a point in time where it's like, okay, I'm ready to go home. And I just can't imagine always having that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's a really great analogy. Thank you. What do you think are some of like the challenges that some star seeds face while living here on Earth?
The most common one is body symptoms, meaning they are not used to having this physical body because when they are in the star, they are not having a human body
Mm.
where they first come from. So of course it depends on whether it's your first incarnation and things like that, but it's just a general trait where a lot of them just feel this body is heavy and they don't like it. So they tend to be more spaced out. So
Mm.
they love that feeling of like being spaced out, or not on purpose, of course, but they just tend to be ungrounded and more spaced out. They love to be meditating the whole time because then they are in this like bliss state, if you may, but that causes a lot of disconnection from the body, which can be like ungrounded, scattered, or in a more extreme cases, like I have a friend who actually had eczema since young because of this, like of course, there are more explanation to eczema than being a starseed. There are also emotional blocks behind it and physical thing. But part of like the spiritual underlying it is that feeling of not being home. So feeling rejected, never feeling accepted, and not feeling in the body. So unknowingly rejecting the body, and hence it manifested in eczema. So I'm not saying that everyone who has eczema has a star is a star seed, or that if you are a star seed, you need to experience something extreme like that. It's just a physical manifestation in a more extreme case where one is rejecting the body, which is part of what is the common challenges that starseed has on Earth because of having a human body suit, if you may, that like just putting on a new cloth that you are not comfortable with, so you don't like it and you don't reject it, and you reject it because you don't know what it is, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. So I also read on your profile that you also do something called light language. Can you just describe what that is and how do you use it?
So light language is simply an energy transmission. So it can be expressed through sound or movement as well as drawing or art. And it's just an expression of the divine. And the same way any other modality is an extension of the divine, light language is just one other tool, if you may. And it can be used in a many different ways depending on the intention of the one who channel it. For me, primarily, I see light language as a portal of soul remembrance because for me, when I work with light language, whether I'm channeling it or whether I'm receiving it, I felt that what it truly does for me, as well as I see it a lot in my clients, is that it really activates a deep cellular DNA level of remembrance where you remember who you truly are and why you are here and why you are what you came here for. So that's why I call it like a soul remembrance journey, because you already know, you just have to remember it or reactivate it. So that's how I primarily use light language healing for the soul remembrance journey. Having said that, it's also a great tool to use it for angel healing, for DNA activation, heart activation, and even like vocal activation. So it's like you can set an intention to use light language for a specific intent, or you can kind of keep it open and let it come true and then see what comes up. So that depends on the person who is channeling it.
Beautiful. And so speaking of channeling, can you tell us a little bit about what exactly, how would you describe channeling and can anybody develop that ability?
Yes, definitely everyone can develop that ability if they want to. And I'll describe channeling simply as allowing yourself to be a vessel for the divine to work through you. So what does that mean? Like how will the divine work through you? Again, just like as I shared earlier about light language, it can be through sound. Maybe there is a message coming through you, whether it is written or spoken, or maybe it is art. You can be channeling an art or a dance or a song. So the expression is infinite, like anything can be channeling. The key is that it is coming from the divine. It's not necessarily like trans channeling. A lot of people, when they heard about channeling, they associate it has to be like this going into the trance state and channeling some form of entity. Although that is definitely one form of channeling, but that is not always the case. Even channeling can be as simple as like listening to the intuition in that not just that intuitive hit that comes from the divine, and you channel it through your own expression by writing a blog post, for example, and that to you might be like I'm just following my intuition, right? You don't necessarily think that it's channeling. However, that can also be a form of channeling. So to me, channeling is such a everyday thing. It's just about the perspective of how you see it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. That was a great explanation for channeling. You also talk a little bit about clearing your Akash. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means and why is it important for spiritual growth?
Mm-hmm. So just for those who are new, basically when I talk about Akash, I mean the Akashic records where all of the information about your soul is stored across lifetime. So you have access to your own personal library of information, if you may, except that this is kind of like an energetic version of it. So I always say, if you imagine entering a grand library, but this has all of the files you ever need about your life, and that you can access any chapters that you want, and it will always be shown to you at the right time. So that is kind of like what Akash is, so that we know what we are talking about. And clearing your Akash, what I mean by that is to clear away all the past memories or records that no longer serve you. And a lot of this include things like past vows and contracts and agreement that we might have made in our past life that obviously we don't necessarily remember. So a common example is a healer's vow, where you might be taking some form of healer's vow that says like you have to be or service to others in expense of yourself. It's almost like a healer's vow plus sacrifice vow. Like the name is depending on how you want to name it, but a lot of it says like, I have to be of service, but at the expense of ourselves, which we know in this modern day that doesn't serve, because it means you're going to have burnout, right? And if you are burnout, you can serve anybody. But that are some of the old vow that you might have made, maybe because you are part of a religion or a church or whatever organization that you were formed that has those vows for whatever reason, and you took it for a lifetime. So it's important to go into the Akash, although that's not the only way to do it, but Akash is one way to do it to help you clear and cancel and revoke this agreement so that you don't carry into this lifetime. Otherwise, you might find that you are repeating the same cycle again and again, like for in the case of the healer's vow, that you might feel that it's also not spiritual to receive money for your healing work, because you have to sacrifice yourself, right? And you have to be at expense of others. So you might find yourself, I have to give everything for free. I will even give myself for free. But that obviously didn't help. So that's just one of the example. Obviously, there are so many other vows or traumas or just past memory that no longer serve. And it's so important for spiritual growth because we are here for mastery, for our soul to expand and to master love or whatever you think you come here to master. And you can't really you can master it, but it's easier to master it without carrying all these past baggages. So the more you clear it, the easier your path is going forward.
Mm, I'm curious to know, are we each able to go into the Akashic record and do this clearing, or do we have to go to somebody to do this? Like, how does that work?
So from my personal experience is that it depends on where you are in your spiritual journey. So of course, if you don't feel like you know how to guide yourself, then maybe, get like a Akashic practitioner to guide you through a journey. But if you feel like you can hold space for yourself, you can start by listening to a guided meditation, for example. So you're still guided, but not in person. So it's kind of an in-between space. And for me, a lot of my activation come from my dream. So my first activation is I visited my Akash in my dream, actually. So that might also be possible for you if you want to test it out, just to go to your dream before you sleep. You tell yourself that, hi, my guides, I'm willing to explore my Akash in my dream. And maybe it shows to you. Or maybe it doesn't show to you through your dream, but your guide might lead you to another resources about it. Maybe it's a book, a meditation, a course, or a person. So it's more like the intention and then and you let it kind of guide you. But yeah, you can definitely assess it on your own, but it's more of like whether you know how to do it at where you are right now.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you. I'm curious, how do you balance, being, going from like Starseed and Lightworker? How do you balance your like spiritual mission with like everyday life? Because we still have to live in this 3D world. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
um, the answer is gonna sound so simple, yet it might not necessarily be easy. Meaning to say, like, we might not do it, but we all know this. You probably will not even be surprised by the answer. For me, it's always the answer is stay grounded in your truth, or rather, stay grounded in the present moment.
Mm,
Because all there is the present moment, right? Like, yeah, we talk about the Akash, but again, it's the present moment that matters. And whether you want to talk about your starseed origin, or whether you want to talk your life on earth at the end, it is right here, right now, that you can make a decision and make a new choice and make a difference. So the more grounded you are, the more you are able to balance things out, because a lot of times when people get overwhelmed or burn out, it's just because they are ungrounded and they are scattered. That's why they are all over the place. I mean, if you have ever been burned out, you will know that the common sign is being all over the place, right? Like that, and hence unbalanced. So when you are grounded, then you are able to observe the imbalance or the misalignment and then do something about it.
mm. That's such a powerful answer because I think it always all goes back to balance, right? In everything, in diet and in
Mm-hmm.
spirituality and everything, right? And then how do you achieve balance? It's absolutely staying in the present moment. It's about the here and now. So thank you for that. You said something earlier that kind of intrigued me. You talked a little bit about starseed origin. What exactly does that mean? Do star seeds come from different places, or can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So there are different star system too. So star seed is like a general term, and you might come from a specific one. And if you recall, I talked about Orion at the beginning of the conversation, which is where I first heard about this term. So some of the common ones are like Orion, Sirian, and Andromedan, Palladian, and many more. So sometimes how you know you're a starseed can also be how you feel when you read or heard about this name. It might be there is one name that just stay with you. Like you don't even have to know it's a star. It just like kind of landed on you. So yeah, that is like starseed origin.
Can I ask what your starseed origin is?
So sometimes they might have more than one starseed origin too, because they might come back again on the on like the next mission. And for me, I knew for sure that I was a Palladian, and I always kind of knew it, but I actually had the confirmation pretty recently, which is so timely for this conversation, because in May this year, there was a Palladian portal around end of May where, because of the alignment of the stars, there is this energy portal that allows us to assess the energy of the Palladian more strongly. So we refer to it as Palladian portal for simplicity. And of course, you can access to that 24/7, but in this portal, it's just really strong. And during that portal, I have so much activation happening. And one of them was that I started to seeing a lot of blue color even before the portal. So even before the portal happened, because usually when I meditate or do my spiritual work, I tend to see energy colors, and they are mostly golden or white or even pink. I rarely see blue at all, but at that time, all I see is blue and blue. And what started out as like a flashes of blue light turns into a waterfall of light coming, and it eventually turns and crystallizes into a council of light being that I can see and feel very closely, and I knew intuitively they are the Palladian star mothers. And
Mm.
it's also during that time that I received this download of doing a starseed DNA activation through light language. I actually initially channeled that not for people, like it's just something that came to me. So I recorded it, and I didn't connect the dot at all until like when I connected the dot, I was like, okay, it was during the Palladian portal that I started to see this blue color. And it was around the same time I created the DNA activation, which is designed to help people remember their starseed origin and activate their DNA with all the information that they carry. Meaning to say, if I come from Palladian, there will be gift and traits that originally come from Palladian that is inside my DNA, again, awaiting for my remembrance and hence your remembrance journey, right? So yeah, everything just kind of like link back again. And that is my another pivotal moment in my awakening journey, if you may, that yeah, I know for sure I came from Palladian. I also know to some degree that I'm from Lemuria. It's just that the feeling of connection at this point is the strongest with Palladian. But
Mm.
then that might change, who knows, right? I
Yeah.
just felt that that's who my primary guide is at this point of the recording.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So what role do you believe star seeds play in like the collective awakening of humanity?
To share their gifts. So each star seed has their own trait and origin, and you don't necessarily need to know anyway. So I also want to remind us that even if you don't know which starseed origin you come from, is okay. I didn't know initially until I know. I just knew I was starseed, and that was a great enough place to start with, because at the end, it's not about labeling anyway. So it's like you will receive the information you need at the time.
Hmm.
So there might be starseeds here who are playing huge role of awakening without having to call them starseeds. So I just really want us to remember that at the end, starseed is also not about labeling or separating. It is still about oneness at the end. And as to the role, we have like what I call a double mission. So individually, it depends on your personal mission, but collectively, most starseed who resonate as a light worker especially will know that they are here on a mission to spread love and light, and hence in that alone, right, we are raising the vibration of humanity and helping with the ascension of all beings here on earth as we ascend into the new earth. And that is the role we have collectively in the awakening process. And the how is unique to individual. And then, so if I come from Palladian, my gift I know for sure is that of love. So I know with certainty that no matter what topic I teach, it always, always, always come back to talking about love. And for some other starseed, it might be technology. They might come from a starseed origin that has a strong advanced technology there that they might suddenly remember it this lifetime because they awaken their gift and DNA, and then they can bring forth that same technology here in this lifetime, but this time to make sure that it's used for highest good of all, that it comes to the right hand, so to speak. So those are just examples of how we can play our role beyond just the spiritual world, because like spirituality is everyday life. So at the end, awakening is in your everyday life.
I love that. Thank you so much. Can you share some practical tips on how we might all be able to maybe protect our energy and stay grounded?
That's a great question. So one of my favorite way is just embodiment work. So anything that involves your body, whether you're gonna move your body, if you're more active, maybe it might look like dancing or jumping or exercising or yoga, or just literally touching your body brings you immediately back to your body. And this is something I really love, even just putting your hands on your forehead, it really calms you. And then just be there for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, And then if you feel like your other hand can go to your heart
Mm.
or anywhere else, like your hand, I have to repeat that, has magnetic field and has its own ability to balance yourself. And this is what I learned from a kinesiologist, although I'm not an expert in this topic, but what I learned from a kinesiologist, it's really hard to pronounce apparently, kinesiologist, yeah, is that, yeah, we all have magnetic field, right? So actually what was interesting is your hand is designed for your own rebalancing, meaning even as a kinesiology work with you, they prefer you to use your own hand,
Mm.
unless if the person is not, is like they cannot move their body, of course, but they would rather that you use your own hand because of that specific attunement of frequency or magnetic field that is like uniquely to yours, that your body is perfect, it knows how to balance itself. So if you use your own hand, you'll be surprised at how powerful it is. So as I say, one great way that I love is really just putting your hands anywhere you feel like you called to. My favorite is to put it on your forehead. If that looks weird in public, then put it somewhere else, maybe like in your nervous system, which is around your stomach. Maybe it's less, if I'm on a Zoom call, then, maybe if I put it in my tummy, you won't know, but it will have to soothe my nerve and ground myself. So, in short, that's like my favorite one. And another of my favorite one that is more commonly known is EFT tapping.
Mm.
But then the concept again is not so much for me the modality than the fact that you are in tune in the body. Like these are just practices that like just tapping and touching your body reminds you are in the body.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
How do you see the future as more and more people awaken?
Oh, that will be such a beautiful one. It's a great question. I definitely see where love will be the new paradigm, where we can leave our house without locking our door because everyone just love everyone, and that we can leave our children on the street, without having to worry it get kidnapped or get run over or something, because everyone is raising your children with you because we are all one. So is that society, I think the main changes for me, I see it more like on a society level, that we are back to oneness, we are back to love. We remember part of humanity, or rather all parts of humanity is about love. So, and I believe that we are going there. How fast, that's another question. When will that eventually materialize into its fullness, that's another question. But I do believe that we are heading towards that.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. So can you tell us a little bit about your offerings? How can people find you? Just tell us a little bit about what you have going on.
Sure. So you can find me either in social or in my website. It's all with the name Elies Hadi, and as well as the Starseed Goddess podcast that I have. So you can find all the information down below. And in order to support your Starseed Awakening journey, I've also created an on-demand course called Starseed Awakening, where you get to actually be guided to meet your star family, so you can actually have the opportunity to feel how it feels like to meet your star family. And then there are also activations, such as one where we help you to activate your starseed codes and to remember your gifts and awaken your calling. Essentially, it is a soul remembrance journey to help you remember who you are, why you are here, and what you are here to do. And as a way to give thanks to Jesse and this beautiful podcast, I've also created a 30% offering, 30% off for the offering, so that you guys can actually assess it at a discounted price.
Thank you so much for that wonderful gift. I will be sure to include all of your socials and that code down below in the show notes. And I want to just thank you so much for coming on here and teaching us a little bit about the Starseed journey, and also sharing all of the knowledge and wisdom that you have.
Thank you so much, Jesse. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you. For everybody that's been listening in, if you enjoyed this episode, please comment down below, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.